Hey everybody, I am here with Mr. Siler Head. Thank you so much. He has come into a studio. We're doing some recording work and getting some music made. But in the meantime, I thought it'd be great to sit down, just talk a bit, hear his story, share what he's doing with the world. So really, thank you so much for taking the time to come down, record, and talk to us.
Pleasure to be here, Jacob.
Well, let's just get right to the beginning. Let's hear about your story. Where's it start, and what's the story behind the beginning of you?
My story starts in Florence, Alabama, actually.
Florence right now.
It's cool that we're in Florence, Montana. And Florence, Alabama, it's part of the Shoals, the historic Muscle Shoals Sound.
Oh my God,
is
yes,
right
yes, yes. One of my favorite documentaries of all time.
Yeah, so I grew up very much in that environment and in a household where music was always being blasted out of speakers. And,
very
and
cool.
good music too. So
Were your parents musical at all? Just like music? Do they play any instruments or sing?
They don't play any instruments. They're both big music people. Both of them have a brother that is a good guitar player. So I grew up with guitar playing uncles. Didn't spend much time with them, but I knew they were there.
Right. That's literally just describing me. I'm an uncle, and that's it.
Yeah.
Guitar playing uncle. Okay, so I understand that frame of reference. Fantastic.
Yeah.
When did you find music in your life? When did you I want to take this on further and learn guitar? And when did that happen to you?
I grew up loving music as a kid. I didn't start playing until I was 12-ish years old. I can remember being a small child in our minivan and having the white Full Moon Fever cassette from Tom Petty. And
cool. That's a good album.
Very good album. And, probably my first real album that I latched onto. And then my dad was really into making playlists and burning CDs back in the day. He was kind of like a DJ in that way. He would make CDs for parties and stuff that he went to and take them. And so I really got into that, making my own CDs and playlists and that kind of thing. And I think most of my first CDs were just copies of his.
That's really cool.
It was stuff I know that there's one I remember it's called Siler's Mix, but it was probably Dad's mix.
Right.
And it was Hey Joe was on there, Iron Man by Black Sabbath, Stranglehold by Ted Nugent, Under My Thumb by the Rolling Stones. So just really eclectic, classic rock.
That is the definition of good parenting, if you ask me.
Yeah. And I also remember him getting this. It's kind of like a CD jukebox, it was a 200 CD holder, and then he had all the CDs in this thing alphabetized, and just having that there was just really cool. So there's always music in the house. And then when I was about 12, I think my uncle gave me his first guitar, which was a yellow Telecaster, and so I had that for a while. Took some lessons, and it honestly didn't really stick, and I didn't really pick it up again until I was about 15. And at that point, I'd gotten really into the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Okay.
And that was the first CD I ever bought for myself, was By the Way by the Chili Peppers. And that really just made me, John Frusciante's playing made me want to pick up the guitar.
That's funny. I can definitely hear that in your playing.
Yeah, it's there, even though my style has evolved a lot now.
Oh yeah, it's your own, but it's...
Frusciante is he was such a huge influence on me, and that music was such a big influence on me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a step back from there then. We got up to 15. We know where a bit of your influence is. How about you started in Florence, Alabama. What is the journey from there in life? Where do you go from there?
That is a story, Jacob.
That's why I asked you.
Yeah, that's a big one. I was in Alabama until I was about 23. So I went to school in Alabama, finished college there. I actually did an audio engineering program.
I did not know that.
Yeah, at the University of North Alabama. So I really was... pretty set on being in the music industry in some aspect at that point in my life. I got in my first band when I was 17 going on 18, just graduated high school.
Okay. Where'd you graduate at?
From Florence, Alabama.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and at that point I was just playing in my bedroom for hours every night, learning all the Chili Peppers songs. I remember this dude at my school. He was kind of the big musician guy in our school. His name was Ryle Knight, and he asked me to come and play on a couple of songs at his house. And I got really good at improvising because I was just like jamming over these Chili Peppers tracks in my house. And then when I went over to his house this rainy day, I remember driving there and we were in his bedroom and he just played me this song that would go on to be one of our band songs. And I just like locked in and jammed to it immediately. And he was like, how'd you do that? And I was like, well, I'm kind of like pretending I'm in the Chili Peppers right now. And I'm just like jamming over your track. But I remember that was my first moment where I just like seamlessly jammed with somebody and fell into music feeling. In that way.
Wow.
Yeah, it was super cool. I'll always remember that. Yeah, and so like I played in that band. I got in some other bands along the way, and so all while I was in college, I was gigging, and we had a really rich music scene. Just being in the shoals, like the music was everywhere, and like the history was always there. People were always talking about it. But the new local bands that became my friends. God, we had just some amazing bands and shows, and just that was my whole scene, and so that was just like a golden era. If you ask any of those guys and girls from that time, they would be like, those bands were sick and they were awesome. Yeah.
Where did you go to college?
University of North Alabama.
Okay, we're keeping consistent. Nice.
Yeah.
So we go to college, you're doing that. What's your next step out of college? Do you lose music for a while? Do you stay with your music? Do you just follow life? What happens?
I always stay with music. And yeah, I really was, when I was graduating college, I was really stoked to be like, I'm done with school. I'm going into the band full time. We're going to do it. And then maybe a month before I graduated, my bass player found out he got a girl pregnant. The band kind of, we were like, are we going to do this or not? And so like we ended up just, we tried some other permutations of lineups a little bit, and yeah, it just kind of fizzed out. And so I was really disappointed. And a few months after that, I went with my cousin to India for about 40 days. And when I came back, that just like took my life on a whole nother journey. So when I came back from India, shortly after that, I got a job in Alaska doing running sound for live music.
Wow, what part of Alaska?
In Denali, right outside Denali National Park.
Cool.
And in Anchorage as well.
Wow.
Yeah,
so you're doing live sound.
I was doing live sound. I'd never done it before, really. I thought I was going to be working in a recording studio.
Somebody asked for an engineer, and you're like, yay.
Yeah. I was just like, I'll take a job, like even if I had to go to Alaska, And so I did that, and I did that for 3 summers. And that's where like my playing style really changed, because I was not in a band anymore. I started playing more acoustic guitar than electric guitar. Like up to that point, I hardly even played acoustic guitar. And I don't know, once I got to Alaska, I just like everything got more stripped down. The music I listened to was changing a little bit. And yeah, my playing style slowly just started moving from like being a lead guitar player to being a solo fingerstyle guitarist.
It's beautiful. Whatever crafted this, whatever brought this to be of your sound, is just amazing. And you guys got to hear this. All the links will be below, and any music he puts out through us, everything will be below. But you got to hear this. It's amazing. It's unique, but beautiful, but ambient, but building these layers. It's so great, and I'm grateful for whatever that journey happened to be. So way to go for that.
Thank you.
So when did you meet your wife? I know you're married. Like, when did that come in? Like, what that part of your life? How'd that shape out?
So, yeah, after Alaska, I'd been practicing yoga like for since I was like 20-ish, and decided to go do a yoga training. I went to Bali and did a yoga teacher training, and came back, started teaching yoga, and got deeper into yoga, deeper into breath work, and then on the heels of doing a breathwork training, I went with my cousin to Sri Lanka. And this was in January of 2020. And Sri Lanka was going to be kind of our first stop on a trip abroad, for maybe about a year. And we were going to plan to go to Europe and do all this stuff. And we were in Sri Lanka for a couple months. And so I was there teaching yoga, and we were gigging, and he's a musician also. So we were playing music and having a blast. And then when COVID really hit in March, we didn't know what was nobody knew what was going on. We just decided to stay put. So I stayed in Sri Lanka. I ended up being there for about a year and a half, and I met Anya, my wife, along the way there.
Wow.
And about 10 months into that, yeah. And so, yeah, had just like a really special time in Sri Lanka. Anya's from Russia. I went to Russia with her after Sri Lanka for a few months, and then we went to Mexico while she was getting her U.S. visa sorted out.
Been around. That's so cool.
Been around, yeah. And I was like teaching yoga to support myself around the world, really, and playing music when I could, and playing music for myself the whole time, gigging when I could.
Of course.
Yeah, I always had a guitar with me. Bought a guitar like in St. Petersburg in Russia, bought a guitar in Oaxaca, Mexico, just like picking up these guitars from all around the world. And then while I was in Oaxaca, in Mexico, that's when I got my job offer to come to Montana. So that's when I transitioned up there.
And I remember, that's amazing. And I believe I was just listening, you were telling me the story about you did some vocal work with a special teacher. When did that happen?
Oh, yeah. So while I was in Oaxaca, Anya had met this girl who had taken vocal lessons from this Mexican gentleman named Abel, who was I think it's Abel Cortez Hernandez is his name.
That's a great name.
Great name. And he was a pretty well-known Mexican opera singer in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and then he began to teach later in life, and so he was close to 90 when we were taking lessons with him. But we on this girl's recommendation, we went just to check him out. This guy didn't speak any English at all, which was great for my Spanish practice. And dude, it was just like this weird little like classroom, like just a little corridor that you went in off the street, and with the piano in it, and he would just run scales with me and do vocal exercises with me, and we got to be really cool. I really looked forward to going and seeing him, and he added a whole step to my vocal range within like a month and a half. And yeah, it was a really funny and fun experience. And he has frogs all over his space. That's his thing, because his phrase is, let me see if I can remember it in Spanish. It's si la rana puede cantar, por qué tú no? So if a frog can sing, why can't you?
Yes.
And so
that needs to be a shirt. I love it.
Yeah. So all of his students would bring him like little frogs or big frogs and like leave all these little trinkets with him. So he's the frog guy.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. That's just a little lesson in there where everybody can always get better, but you never know where it's going to come from if you just keep your mind open, your soul open.
Oh, for sure. That was a really great experience for just letting go vocally too, because Mexican culture is they're kind of like all over each other sometimes. There's not as much personal space as like in America. Right. And so this place is just right outside the park, and there are like loud buses and people going by, so you can like really let it go, but then also people just like wander in the studio and just sit there and wait for their turn they're listening to, and you're like, you just got to kind of just go for it. And yeah, it was a really good experience in just letting go and kind of finding my voice in that way.
How cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So what, in all these worldly travels, all these things you're doing, these amazing adventures you're doing, how do you wind up in Montana?
When I was in Oaxaca, I just was kind of thinking like, I wonder what yoga jobs are out there right now. And I did a little Google search, and I found this place, this guest ranch that's in Immigrant, Montana, called Mountain Sky Guest Ranch. And they had a position for a yoga instructor and an assistant to the wellness center, assistant manager position. And I just applied for that, really just kind of like not half-heartedly, but like no expectation.
Yeah,
I was just like, I'm happy, I'm cool here, but like I'll just see what happens, whatever. And and then I heard back, and a few months later I was on my way to Montana, and my wife at the time, she didn't have her papers yet, she couldn't come, so we had a period where she was still in Mexico, and that's actually how Abel, the maestro, came about, because while I was here, another girl moved into our house and she took the lessons. And so then after my first summer in Montana, I went back to Mexico, and Anya's like, we need to try this teacher
cool.
out. And so that's when that all happened. And so yeah, I worked this seasonal yoga job in Montana, and then I went to massage therapy school, and came back last year and then this summer as well to do both massage therapy and yoga at the ranch again. So I've been in Montana for 3 summers now. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. I love the journey. Thank you for sharing again. Wonderful. Yeah. Let's just steal a bit of your knowledge, if you don't mind. You've done so much with music. You've been around the world. It seems like you've stayed true to yourself and kept music with you at all times. Is there anything that you'd share with maybe an up-and-coming or younger generation when it comes to, first of all, how to keep music in your life, and then maybe some hints or some tips you'd share? Like you're an engineer. You've been there. You've been through it all. What would you share with somebody that's upcoming, like, when should they be recording themselves? What kind of things? Anything you can share like that at all? It's a very loaded question.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I would say just start doing everything, start recording yourself at home, get whatever gear you can and just start. Because I learned a lot of valuable lessons as far as production and studio from, yes, interning in a studio, but also like with playing with these guys that were in our community, and they had such a high standard. Like the level of playing when I was around that scene in college was so high that it elevated me so much. And I practiced and I would record it, and we were listening back to our band practices, and so we're getting mixing and engineering experience while we're practicing our instruments.
Right.
And yeah, that just like being in that environment pushed me so much musically. And for performing, gosh, I mean, I've been on a journey as, just like owning my artistry as a singer and a songwriter and just a musician. And because I'd always been a guitar player in a band, the recording that we've been doing, this is the first time I've been in a studio as a vocalist and singing my songs. So
as the artist,
as the artist. So yeah, I think just push. You need to push yourself out of your comfort zone.
Great advice.
It's the only way that you can grow, and you just need to get reps playing. Like when I was in Sri Lanka, I really pushed myself to go to open mics, and I was also really pushing myself to go to open mics sober too.
Oh wow.
Because not like it was a problem, but I was just like, I want to be able to get up in front of an audience without having to drink.
Yeah, no coping mechanism.
Just like get up there and do it raw. And I mean, the drink helps sometimes.
Of course. There's a reason that artists and musicians, gravitate that way, but
it works.
Wow.
But it was a challenge for myself. I was just like, I just want to make myself do it. And I would say the more consistent you are with that, with just getting those repetitions, the more comfortable you're going to be, because I've had periods in my life where I don't play out for months at a time, and it's like this, and then you go and have that open mic experience or whatever, and you're like, woo, that was great. I got great feedback. I played well. Like, people are giving me compliments. Like, it's awesome. And then instead of riding that wave and getting the next gig or going and playing, wait a few more months, and then you got to pick yourself back up. So the more consistent one can be with almost anything, really, the more you can grow and the more potential you can fulfill.
Wonderful advice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that.
For sure.
So obviously listen to that. He's going to actually do a performance for us of one of his songs that we happen to be recording. Follow us, subscribe, make sure you don't miss that when that comes out. But just before we're done here, I want to talk about what's coming up for you. What's coming up in your music life? What's coming up in business, financial, anything at all? What's coming up for Siler looking ahead?
Well, first thing, I'm super stoked to finish this EP that we're working on together.
It's gonna be really good. Don't miss them.
Excited for that. And as a yoga teacher, I'm still doing projects, and I love incorporating music into the work I do with yoga and with breath work. So
That's amazing.
I was recently at a festival in Teton Valley, collaborating with another yoga teacher and playing guitar during her class, just like in a barn full of people. And I really love, I really love playing music during yoga practice and supporting the practice in that way. And I usually just approach it as an improvisation, and just, you know, I'm reacting to what the teacher's doing or the energy in the room. And that's like a really organic jam for me. So I'm looking forward to doing more of those kind of projects and collaborations. And yeah, we'll see. I'm going to keep writing music and keep recording and see where it goes.
Very cool. I just love how those two parts of your being and who you are mesh together, and you make so much use of that. That's amazing. Do you wind up, this is a little side tangent just because I like to know, as you're doing those pieces, as you're just improvising, doing that, do you wind up pulling pieces out of that? Like, I really like that. Tuck this away. I'm going to make a song out of this later. Does that ever wind up happening?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's where I write all my songs.
Is it?
All my songs just come from playing, you know? Like, I'll sit down and, I mean, just keep playing. Like, if you ever feel like you're out of inspiration or you can't think of an idea for a song, my advice would be just keep playing, because
it'll show up.
It's like, it will come out, because all of my songs just come out of me playing guitar. Something happens. Like, almost always it's the music before the words for me. And then I'll have a little cool bar, or like this could be a verse or a chorus, and then I build around that, and then I try to write to that later. And then also with the words, like, normally when I try, it doesn't happen. It's usually when I'm like in the bathtub or something, where I'm like, that's a good line, you know? So yeah, be consistent, keep playing, but don't try too hard.
Oh, awesome. Well, we will have all his links below, like we said. Check out everything, see what he's doing. If you need a yoga class or some instruction, this is the guy you want to look up. And of course, we'll be promoting any music coming his way, anything he's doing, we'll have it out there. Don't miss his performance with us. Again, Siler Head, thank you so much for your time. Wonderful to get to learn from you and hear your story. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure.
All right, we'll see you guys on that next one. Bye.